Hello everyone, welcome again. Well, in this video we are going to discuss about performance testing using Jmeter. So in this video these are the topic which I am going to cover. First we will see how you can set up the Jmeter in your local system. Then we are going to discuss some of the basic component which is used to write the Jmeter script. And in the end of the video we will run a basic performance test flow. So let's start with setting up Jmeter. So for that you require Java runtime environment 1.6 or higher. If you have JDK, that is also good, and Jmeter files. So after installing the JDK or Java runtime environment, you need to set Java home variable. So just navigate to system property, environment variable, and create a variable named Java home and specify the value as the location where you have installed your JDK or JRE. Now once this is done, you need Jmeter files. So Jmeter files can be downloaded from its official website, that is Apache Source Foundation. Jmeter is an open source tool, so you don't need to pay anything for this. So this is the location or zip file you can get from their website. So just click on it and it will start downloading for you. So I have already downloaded the Jmeter and extracted it. So after extraction you will get this kind of folder structure. Just navigate to bin directory, and inside the bin directory just double click on a file name called jmeter.bat and it will start the Jmeter for you. So this is the GUI of the Jmeter. Now moving on, we are going to discuss certain terminology which we will be using for writing our performance test flow. The first is the test plan. So if you look at the GUI, there is already a test plan present. This is nothing but it contains the steps which we are going to use for creating a performance flow. So you can say it's a grouping purpose. Now the second component is thread group. So inside the test plan, just right click, add thread group. Now this particular thread group represents the number of user you want to create. If you look at it, the configuration, here it says that number of thread, that is user. So if I specify here as 3, so Jmeter will create 3 different thread corresponding to 3 different user. Okay. If I specify 5, that means Jmeter will create 5 different thread in order to simulate the action of 5 different user. Okay. So this is the thread group. Now second thing is the ramp up period. So here you need to specify the time period. Let's say I specify 3 seconds. So Jmeter will take 3 seconds amount of time to bring up all this 5 thread live. Okay. If I specify as 6, so Jmeter will take a total amount of 6 seconds to bring up this 5 thread up and running. So depending upon your requirement you can specify the ramp up period. The third option is loop count, and here we specify the number of requests which we want to send. For example, here if I specify 1000, so Jmeter will send 1000 requests, and this request will be corresponding to single user. That means if I am specifying 1000 over here, each thread will send 1000 requests to the targeted URL. So in our case I have specified 5 user, so that means every user will send 1000 requests and total it will come to 5000 requests. Okay. So the third component is user defined variable. So just right click on your thread group, add config element. So once more, right click on thread group, add config element, user defined variable. So this particular entity or component will contain the variable which will be used across our Jmeter script. In other words, you can say that all the global variable will be present inside this particular entity. Okay, so we will see the use of this user defined variable in a minute. Now HTTP cookie manager and cache manager. So these are the two components which we will add in our Jmeter test script to make sure that as if the requests are coming from a URL. So when you add these two components, Jmeter will try to simulate as if the request is coming from an actual URL. So for this, again, right click on thread group, add config element HTTP cookie manager, again add config element HTTP cache manager. Okay, so I'm not doing any kind of additional configuration, I'm just going with the default configuration here. Okay, here there is an option called clear cookies on each iteration. If I check this, so every time when Jmeter send a request to the targeted URL, it will clear the cookies, and similarly for the cache. Okay, so for every request it will create a fetch request, it will not take from the cache and will not use the existing cookies. Now the next component is HTTP header manager. So whenever you send a request, every request will have an header associated with it. The header can contain any information. For example, if the targeted URL is using some kind of authentication mechanism, so that information I need to specify inside the header. So I need to create a custom header. So for that, Jmeter provide a config element called HTTP header manager. So here you can specify the information about your header and it will be just associated with your request before sending to the targeted URL. Now HTTP default request. So again thread group, right click on thread group, add config element HTTP request defaults. HTTP request defaults. So HTTP request defaults will contain certain default configuration for your request. For example, you are trying to create a GET request to the targeted URL where the base URL is same but the context path is keep on changing. So those kind of configuration you can specify inside the request default. So it will be act as a default configuration for your request. So here you can specify the IP of the server, which kind of protocol you are using, and port number along with the parameter if there are any. Now the HTTP request. So this is the actual request which is going to hit the targeted URL. So far all these things are the configuration, but the actual request will be the HTTP request. So just do a right click on thread group, add sampler, and here HTTP request. Okay, so let me make it as get. So here using the method you can specify what kind of request you want to create for the targeted URL, and here I will go with the get. Okay, so this is the actual HTTP request which is going to hit the URL, and it will have this all configuration. So Jmeter already will automatically configure all this stuffs before sending this request to the targeted URL. Now after that, view result tree. So whenever you query a URL or whenever you send a request to a URL, you expect some response. So in Jmeter you can view that response in a different manner. For example, if you want to see the response of individual requests, that can be done with the help of view result tree. So in the thread group, just right click, add listener, and view result tree. So it is going to give me the information of every request. It is going to list down all the requests over here, and if I click on any one of them, it is going to give me the detail about that request. Okay, and the second type of report which we can use inside the Jmeter is summary report. So this is going to give me a consolidated report of all the requests which is sent to the targeted URL in the form of table. Okay, So this is also in thread group, add listener and summary report. Okay, so as you can see here inside the summary report we have samples that represent the number of requests, average response time, minimum, maximum response time and throughput. Okay, so now these are the configuration which we need to do for running our Jmeter test flow. Okay, so I have an URL which, so this is a fiddler where I have an URL. When I query this URL, so this is going to return me the information about the IP address which I specified inside that URL. So this is the particular URL. Okay, here I specify the IP address, and in response it is going to give me the information about that IP address which I have passed as an argument. So we are going to run a performance flow for this particular URL. Okay, so first of all I will go to my HTTP request defaults, and here I will specify my base URL. So this is the base URL. I will specify the protocol. So this is the protocol, and inside the get request I will specify the rest of the path. So this is the path. Method is get, and here I will use the protocol HTTPS. Okay, now as I showed you in Fiddler, if I specify the IP address inside the URL, it is going to give me the information of the corresponding URL. So here I will add a preprocessor. Okay, so what is the job of preprocessor is that before sending the get request, this particular function or the script which is present inside this preprocessor will get executed. So here what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to hit that particular URL with different set of IP address while running the performance test. So I'm going to create a script which will pick up the random IP address from a set and supply to the request. So here this is a bean shell script, and this is the set of IP address. So inside this bean shell preprocessor, in the parameter I have specified the series of IP address which I want to use an argument, and using this particular variable name, that is parameter, I am going to split those based on the comma. So as you can see here in this location I have specified the different IP address which are separated by the comma. So this particular statement will split, and this parameter is coming from this particular thing. So this parameter will get split based on the comma, and it is going to return me an object of array, string of object of array of string object. And using the random variable I will generate a random value which will lie between 0 to 6, and during the runtime it is going to pick up any random IP address from this set, pass it to the random value, and I'm going to store this particular value inside a variable name called random value. Okay, so in the Jmeter, whenever you want to use any variable, just use $, specify the variable name. So like this. So this is the variable name, and using the $, you can use the variable in your script. So this is the random value which is coming from your bean shell. So this is the thing. Okay, so here along with the name of the get request I will use the variable. Okay, now once this is done, I will go to the thread group. I will create 6 different users, and everyone is going to query 1001 requests to the targeted URL. Okay, so in order to run this, you can see there is a play button over here, and you can see the number of thread running over here from the top right corner. So if I click on it, so let me save it. So as you can see here, there are 6 threads which is coming from your configuration. All the 6 threads are up and running, because as you can see there is a green sign over here, and these threads are going to query, or you can say that every thread is going to perform a get request to the targeted URL. If I go to the view result tree, so as you can see that the result is coming and it is going to give me the response of every request. So as you can see here, we are getting an error. So let me stop it. So if I click on any request, you can see here I'm getting a response code of 401, that is unauthorized. Okay, and message as an error occurred. So this is the reason why I'm getting the 401 unauthorized, because the targeted URL which I'm using for running the performance flow uses an authentication mechanism. So this authentication information I need to specify inside the header. So now I'm going to take the help of HTTP header manager. Okay, so first of all I'll create a variable name header value, and this will contain the value of authentication header. So this is the authentication header value. So now this particular variable which I specified inside user defined variable can be used anywhere inside the script. Okay, so I will go to HTTP header manager. Here I will add an entry. So this is the name of, you can say the header will be in the form of key value pair. So for authentication header, this is the key, and the value will be as we specify inside the user defined variable. So I can use it directly here, just like dollar curly braces and this. So during the runtime, this particular value will be replaced by this. Okay, now I'll clear the requests, clear the view result tree and rerun our script once again. So now as you can see that this time we are getting the proper response, and here as you can see that every time the get request is triggering, it is picking any random IP address from the set of 6. So first for 1.2.3, 1.34.19.89 and so on. And here you can see that now I'm getting the response code as 200 and response message as OK. So this is the detailed information about the request. So if I want to see the response data, which I get it after doing a get request to the targeted URL, navigate to response data. So this is the response data I'm getting from the get request. So as you can see that it is in the form of JSON. So from this particular drop down I select the JSON. So you can see that this is the information for every IP address. Now if I go to the view summary report, so as you can see that this is the get request for every IP address. This is the number of requests so far we have sent, and this is the average response time of that particular URL, minimum response time and maximum response time plus throughput. Okay, so right now total number of requests so far is 2000, and if you look at the thread group here, there are 6 users, everyone will throw 1001 requests. So the total number of requests will the Jmeter will generate is 6006. So this bean shell, before sending the GET request, automatically this bean shell will pick up any random IP address from the set of 6 and supply to the GET request. And if you look at inside the view result tree, as you can see here, GET followed by IP address. This is coming because inside the GET request I have specified the GET hyphen and attach the random value variable which is coming from your bean shell. So that is why you are seeing the every request in the form of GET and corresponding IP address. Okay. So again, from the user defined variable we have specified the header, and this particular header value, sorry, in the user defined variable we have specified the value for the header, and inside the header I am using this particular value with the help of header value variable. So in the HTTP request default, as you can see that I have specified the base URL, and the request is keep on changing based on the IP address supply, so that I specify inside the GET request. So far 4000 requests, and average response time is coming as 239, minimum is 138, maximum is 2800 millisecond, throughput is 22 requests per second. And as you can see here, we are getting no error over with the request. So if there is any error, or if we get an error in the response data, we will be alerted with the count over here, and there are 6 different threads which are running right now. So in this manner you can create a basic performance test using the Jmeter, and these are the configuration which you need to require to do. So this configuration just make sure that the request which is generating from the Jmeter is as if it is coming from a browser. So far 5800 requests. So as you can see that all the 6006 requests are done. Now at the end we are getting the average response time is 217 millisecond, minimum is 138, maximum is 2000 millisecond, 2800 millisecond, and throughput is 23 requests per second. And as you can see here, all the 6 threads are down, and we are not getting any kind of failed request. Okay. So in this manner you can do a basic performance test with the help of Jmeter. So that's all for this video, and thanks for watching.